Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. A few weeks ago I did a video on some of the main differences between the Zeiss V4 and V6 ranges. Now that is a high-end sporting rifle scope, sporting scope for hunting use. And today I'm going to do something a little bit similar with some of the variants in the Nightforce range. Now this is by no means an exhaustive discussion, because for every point I bring up you could perhaps bring up 3 or 4 more, so there's one for the comments for you. But I thought I'd just illustrate some of the highlights of the differences across the range. Now the 4 I've got here are, I've got an SHV, an NXS, an NX8 and an ATACR, which sort of go in that price order. Now I'll display some information on screen about the number of different variants in terms of magnification levels, etc., because I don't just want to stand here and read off a specification sheet to you. So essentially, if we look at some of the main features from the start upward, the SHV, which is on this rifle here, it's on a 2.2 rimfire. This is, totally capable scope for centerfire use. It just happens to be on this because I've been enjoying using it. This one's set up in minutes of angle, and it's a moderate magnification level. Now, I've tried to pick for this actual discussion head-to-head scopes that are in the sort of 4 or 5 to 20 times magnification range. Now, like any manufacturer, Nightforce don't specifically cross over at any exact point to show you exactly the same thing, although 3 of the ones I will discuss have got maximum 20 power magnification. One of them is a 22 power. The 4 I've actually got here do vary around that. The SHV is a 5 to 20 by 56, so again we've got a larger objective lens, but again on the actual head-to-head I'm going to discuss all of them with a 50mm front end. The ATACR is a 4 to 20 by 50. The NX8 is a 4 to 32 by 50, and the NXS is an 8 to 32 by 50. Now looking at some of the main handling differences, on the NXS first, we've got rubber eye caps that go on the end, and there's the same on the NXS here, whereas when we move on to the NX8 and also the ATACR, you do get pop-up lens caps, which are a nice feature. So I'm just going to move this rifle out of the way, because this one, although it's it's the SHV, it's the entry level one, it's probably the most basic of the 4. Essentially on this one we've got magnification control here, and we've got turrets on it. Now these turrets are 0 set turrets, so they don't have a specific 0 stop. You basically set them up. There are 3 grub screws circumferential, which you undo, turn it till it marks 0, and you can dial on from that. This one is also left side parallax adjustable, and some of the SHV range are available in illuminated or non-illuminated. The right side windage turret is under a cap. So let's just put that to one side. Let's start with the NXS. I got an NXS for some of my first long-range shooting experiences 15 years ago. And in fact, this is the very model I owned then. This is the 8 to 32, so it's a 4 times erector tube. You've got left side parallax control, elevation on the top, windage on the right hand side. And it's also second focal plane. Now the SHV is also second focal plane, i.e. the reticle stays the same size, and as you zoom in or zoom out, the image gets bigger, but the reticle stays the same. When you look at the NX8 or the ATACR, those are both actually first focal plane, although the NX8 is available in a second focal plane option as well. The ATACR is only first focal plane. The NXS is only second focal plane. Again, we've got zoom control at the back here, and we've also got the eyepiece focus. This is actually the whole ocular bell, and there's a lock ring to set it exactly when you need it. When you change magnification, the whole ocular bell turns with it. Put that one to one side now. One of the things that comes with the NXS is this handy Nightforce adjustment tool for setting up your dials actually. These are really good. They use normal standard hex bits, but of course you can pop them on a keyring, pop them on a keychain, you won't lose them, and those are great for when you need to set up dials like this, where you've got all the Allen keys that you need correct and available to you. The other scopes also come with a similar item. Let's move on to the NX8 now. The NX8 is, again, this is a 30mm tube. The two previous scopes have been on a 30mm tube as well. So we've got magnification at the back here. We can also have parallax on the left, elevation on the top, and windages on the right. This particular one is a cap dial, so it's underneath there. And as we said before, this has got pop-up lens caps on it. Now, the eyepiece focus is control at the back, so the whole eyepiece turns like that, and then you've got a lock ring to lock it in position. The difference here is when you change magnification, the body itself doesn't twist with it. So once that's locked, it's locked and it's fine. So if you are using things like a trigger cam or something like that, or you want to add a PARD 007 on the back of it, you have got the capability of keeping that stationary, and you can control magnification independently. So if we look back at the NXS, you'll see on the NXS that as we change magnification, the whole body turns. Being an 8 times erect tube means you get 8 times magnification variation throughout the zoom range. So for example, on the NXS, where you might have a 4 to 16, which will be 4 to 16 times magnification, or 8 to 32, which will be 4 times magnification, you've got 8 times on this. So for example, this goes from 2.5 to 20, whereas the SHV went from 5 to 20. So you can see you've got twice the magnification range difference between that. That adds a lot of versatility to any optic, because it means you've got that low magnification for a very broad field of view, as well as the high magnification when you need to zoom in and take those precision shots on target. Pop this to one side. Lastly, we move on to the ATACR. Now this is different again. We go up to a 34mm tube here. It's got a 50mm front end, and it's also got the pop-up eye caps. This one is delivered with a fast throw lever for the magnification control. But again, if you look, eyepiece focus is set, the body at the back, and there is a lock ring, but the whole unit turns when you change magnification. So again, it's not suitable if you're using something like a trigger cam or a PARD night vision unit strapped onto the back of it. That's where the NX8 really is the winner in my opinion. On the left side here, you've got parallax control, top is elevation, right side, again, under a cap is the windage dial. And this one is also illuminated. So there's a button on the side here, and actually the NX8 also has the illumination control Digilume on the side there too. Nightforce are well known for a great history in terms of the US military usage. They are thoroughly tested to something like 1250 G for recoil. All directions in terms of shock resistance within that. They've also got immersion testing to 100 feet. Nightforce scopes come with detailed instruction manuals, and as well as all the instruction manuals for the functions and features, they've usually got detailed reticle sheets too, because Nightforce also offer a lot of reticle options. Depending whether you have second or first focal plane in some of the models, or in some of the SHVs you're restricted to second, or in some of the ATACRs you're restricted to first. You choose the scope you want, and I will say I'll put a link to the Nightforce website, because the Nightforce website has a very detailed instruction sheet and also specification charts, and I've actually lifted some of the specifications off there to put a spreadsheet together so I can do some direct comparisons on the screen today. But if you look at this manual here for the ATACR, we've got detailed instructions, detailed specifications in here, all the different scopes within the range, which I'll go into a minute, and of course all the different adjustment sort of elements to them. There is also a description of the limited lifetime warranty that Nightforce offer, and it is a very secure thing, because these are precision made Japanese optics, and they have all the benefits of a US culture warranty to them. Now, I've compiled a spreadsheet from the Nightforce published data to give you a little bit more of an insight into some of the differences and the positives and benefits of some scopes versus the positives and benefits of the others. So if we work through the range, we've got generally a chart here, and I'll probably list these on screen as well so you can see them. But if we look at some of the differences, so here's the ATACR, NX8, NXS and the SHV. So 34mm tube, all the rest are on 30. We've got detailed dimensions on them for the overall size of the scope, and it also says here I've actually chosen from the overall range, I've chosen the 4 to 20 by 50 ATACR, the 2.5 to 20 by 50 NX8, a 5.5 to 20 by 50 NX8 second focal plane, which will bring up a few different comparisons. The NXS I've gone for in a 5.5 to 22 because that's the nearest one it offers that fits with the rest, and when you've got 4 or 5 different scopes in 4 or 5 different ranges, you've kind of got to pick one from each that is the most comparative. The SHV I've chosen is the 5 to 20, so on all of them we've got the 50mm objective lens, and on all of them we've got technical readouts for exactly how much windage and elevation, for especially for elevation for long range usage, in terms of what the features of it are. So if we go straight to the ATACR, which is the most serious scope for long range usage, if we look here, we've got 130 minutes of angle, which is 38 milliradians of elevation travel. Windage is 100 minutes of angle, or 29 milliradians, which is not unusual to find a slightly more rectangular box type structure in terms of the adjustment mechanisms. Moving on to the NX8, we've got 110 minutes of angle, which is 32 milliradians vertically, and 80/23 left and right for windage. The NX8 in the second focal plane option gives us exactly the same dimensions in terms of windage and elevation adjustment, but we're going to look at something specific on that in a moment. Looking at the NXS in the second focal plane variant, we've got a 5.5 to 22 magnification, so it's not directly comparable on some of the latter features, but certainly in terms of mechanical travel range, with 100 minutes of angle vertically and 60 minutes of angle horizontally. This one is only available in minutes of angle. The ATACR and the NX8 are available in both minutes of angle or milliradians. The SHV, in comparative dimensions, we've got 80 minutes of angle vertically and 50 minutes of angle for windage. So as we go down the list there, we go from serious long range capability down to more regular hunting capability at this end. And of course, having a 34mm tube on the ATACR does give more space for the actual erector tube to move within the outer body of the tube. One of the next interesting features to look at is the overall dimension of the scope. Now, although they do change slightly, the one I want to draw specific attention to is the NX8 in first and second focal plane variants, because if we look at the overall length, second focal plane is actually 3mm longer. Secondly, second focal plane is a few grams heavier, not a huge problem, not a huge difference either. But what is very interesting is when we move here, we look at the field of view. So comparing them both at 20 times magnification, the first focal plane actually has a slightly broader field of view at 2.3 meters wide at 100 meters, whereas the second focal plane unit is only 2 meters wide at 100 meters. So that gives you a very, very minor but interesting difference between a first or second focal plane scope, and reminds you that they do have slightly different optical mechanics within. To remind you again, first focal plane, the reticle stays exactly the same size in relation to the image as you zoom up or down. So as you zoom up, the image gets bigger and also the reticle gets bigger. On a second focal plane, the image gets bigger, the reticle stays the same. It's also interesting to look at some of the similarities. Now, 1, 2, 3 and 4 there have all got 50mm objective lens and 20mm maximum magnification. The NXS here is actually 22.5 times maximum magnification, but with the same 50mm objective lens. And if we look at the minimum size of the exit pupil, which is at full magnification, we have 2.5mm, 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 2.3mm, slightly higher magnification, remember, at 22 times, and then we're back to 2.5mm at the 50mm objective lens and 20 times magnification. The ones listed here aren't the exact same ones I've got on the bench in front of me, but you can compare the Digilum versus the analog illumination systems, and also zero stop versus zero set, which I think I explained. Zero stop generally means that once you've set it up, you come back to a hard stop at the end of the travel and you move all the way down and it goes clunk like that, clunk. Whereas on a zero set, it'll rotate and it'll sort of meet a slightly spongier stop, because that's the physical extent, the physical limits of the tube. But zero set means the fact that you can slacken off the dial and turn it to it that at least shows you the zero indicator on it. And as well as the zero indicator, it's got a vernier scale that's revealed underneath the turret as the turret moves. So you do have to do a little bit more counting with those and something with a zero stop, but it's just as functional, and all these scopes are equally capable of dialing for distance with accuracy, precision and tracking consistently as well. If we look at eye relief, we've got 90mm on the ATACR, 88 on the NX8, 95, which is a little bit longer on the NXS, and then we've got 90 on the SHV again. So those are all very much an ideal specification on a larger target precision rifle or a low recoil hunting rifle, something up to 308, 3006 perhaps. Magnum recoiling rifles larger than 30 cal, or certainly the big 30 cal Magnums, and certainly into the European and dangerous game cartridges, yes, you do want more eye relief than that, probably at least 100mm. But that does come with some compromises. So when you're in the sort of 88, 90 to 95mm range, you have got the best, and it does give you a slightly more versatile eye box. Eye box being the amount that your head can move within the eye relief and still maintain exact sight picture. Because of course, as your gun recoils slightly, it's nice if your head's still within the eye box, because it means you can spot your bullet fly all the way to the target, and you've got less disruption, which allows you to pick up point of impact more quickly. Magnum 100mm eye relief scopes do tend to be a lot more critical in terms of the depth of field within the eye box itself. In the same magnification level, all these scopes have parallax control. Interestingly though, the SHV goes down to 25 yards, the NXS at 50 yards, the other two are down to 11 yards, which is 10 metres. Interestingly, if you're talking a long range scope, will you ever need 10 metres? Well, perhaps not, but it does mean that at full magnification, you can also wind that parallax control, which brings focus back as well, so you can use full magnification at the closest ranges. Whereas on the other two scopes, where you've got a minimum of 25 or 50 yards parallax, you might need to drop the magnification a little bit just to make sure that you've got a clear picture to use. Again, this video is just a bit of an initiator to describe some of the differences between 4 scope ranges from the same manufacturer. It is by no means an exhaustive review or test of them. What I would like this to do is stimulate you to be able to go to the Nightforce webpage or whichever scope manufacturer you're looking at and look at the exact differences between the scopes you like and the ones you're interested in. For example, do you need an 8x erector tube to give you that broader magnification range? Do you need very close parallax distance? How much elevation travel is required for your particular shooting discipline? You can question factors like, do you need to move up to a 34mm tube to get the maximum amount of elevation travel you need for your rifle's discipline? Is a zero stop mandatory for your requirements, or is a simple turning turret and you can read the vernier scale acceptable because you're never really likely to move beyond 1 or 2 turns maximum? On something like the ATACR, you can keep twisting this for elevation up, 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 up and up, and it doesn't matter how far you go up, you can just twist it back and it will go click against the stop. You know you're back at your solid baseline zero, which may be 100 metres for example. Flipper eye caps are more convenient. They do add a little bit more cost, or they are certainly a little bit more value within the actual scope itself than rubber eye caps. Have a think about whether you want to add on additional features at the back of the scope, clamp on accessories, because the ability to use the NX8 without the ocular bell rotating is, in my opinion, a benefit over the ATACR, which, although easier to grip, twist and move quickly over magnification, which may apply in purely shooting scenarios, you can't add accessories to that without inconveniencing them. Things like, do you want permanently accessible turrets, or do you want cap turrets like that? The NXS offers permanently accessible turrets, and this is something I saw and used back in my early days of just pure target shooting. Those were very, very common because everything's immediately accessible to you, whereas the NX8 and the ATACR have got a little bit more durability in terms of having cap turrets. And also, what type of illumination control do you want? Do you want push button on off, push button variation between the digilum stages, or do you want a simply twisting control that increases illumination from 0 to maximum and back again? Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching that little video. Please use it as an initiator. It's not a full review, it's not a video, it's not a test. I don't like the word test on reviews. So have a look at the data you want and see what data fits your needs in terms of all these specifications that are so easily available now online. But if you do want to see these scopes physically in person, come and see the Sportsman Gun Centre stand at the British Shooting Show in 2023. And if you go all the way to the end of the video, there is a link to click on to buy the ticket. And also next year, 2023, car parking is included. So please watch to the end, click the link, and there you go. As for my channel, if you want more videos, please like, subscribe and comment. And subscription is the most important thing to bring advertisers to the channel. And if you do subscribe, click the notification bell so you can see the regular weekly uploads. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.